Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Hello everybody, this is Sam Barker here with Aaron Kennedy with Black and White Market Minute on Life Planning 101. This is our first post-election podcast, so
yes,
it was a crazy couple of weeks, past couple of weeks.
Yes, I figured it's been long enough since we've been on one of these, and a lot has happened since. Yeah. A lot has happened. The election was huge. I don't think there's any way around that. Big voice across the country, and people are excited about change. So good or bad, we are going to be seeing some change. And today, I want to talk about how we want to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
The fears, a lot of what we're hearing, what can be done and what can't be done. So just try to clear up a little bit and see what we're thinking.
I know that there's going to be a bunch of conversation about, first of all, the thing that's been talked about, especially since interest rates have gone up, but primarily government spending. What can we expect there?
Man, this is super exciting. I don't think there's been a big push for smaller government in a long time. So bringing Elon Musk in for efficiencies, and Vivek, he's coming in to do it as well, right?
Yeah, they're
he's
both
going
to be running the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. It's going to be pretty interesting.
Oh my goodness. Those have got to be the busiest people employed by the federal government over the next 4 years. They have their jobs cut out for them.
Yeah.
We all know, and we've all joked about golden toilets and how much the government spends, and it is a problem, and we have, let's just say, we've taken advantage of the taxpayer has gotten out of hand. So just the very idea of reining this in is super exciting. Now, we know the government doesn't really spend money in an efficient way. Usually it's buddies. Someone's getting wealthy off of most of that spending, and usually it comes down to what relationships or whose relationship is with somebody else. So that's all about to change. And, I was looking at some numbers today, and I've talked about this site before. If you go to the U.S. debt clock, there's some staggering stuff there. But, right now our federal government's spending about $7 trillion a year. And that's $2 trillion over budget. $2 trillion. So kind of think about this. Let's say Elon Musk and the DOGE department cuts out that deficit. We reduce government spending by $2 trillion. That sounds amazing, and it sounds like that would fix the entire world. But if you think about it, that'll be $2 trillion that's not coming into the market anymore. And I'm not talking about stock market. I'm talking Walmart, gas stations, buying homes. That's $2 trillion that's just gone. So that has to be replaced. So far this year, we have about a $29.3 trillion GDP. That's the amount of output that our government, our country has done. If we shave off $2 trillion, that's almost 10% less output. Almost 10%. So could we handle our GDP dropping by that amount? That would be horrendous. We would be in a recession. It would look horrible. But what would happen if we could replace that spending with actual growth? Now we have something that's sustainable and can drive this rocket ship a lot higher.
Yeah. Well, and I think that government spending's been a lot of, whenever it comes close to recession, COVID's a good example. Whenever things start to look bleak, government steps in and makes everybody feel better and spends a lot of money. And so I think that that's just been kind of the drug that the government's been on for too long. And if you're going to try to get somebody to come in and grow this government in a way, Elon Musk, who manages 4 or 5, he's the wealthiest man in the world, 4 or 5
yes.
major companies, is somebody who might have some good ideas on how to do that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It will be It would be amazing. So if you think about government spending, what is the return that our country gets from government spending? I would say that's a negative number.
Yeah.
I would say that is a big, big negative number. So even if we cut spending, the country still benefits because nothing's going into the black hole. But if we could keep it just as boring as saying GDP growth, but if we could get real growth out of the economy, and that is growing by 2 to 3%, holy cow, we just changed our country forever. And it's sustainable. We can continue doing this over and over again. So it is, I don't think it's going to be a smooth sailing and a nice paved road. It's going to be a little bit bumpy because it does have to work through this. You know, things are going to be, from everything that's said, things are going to be different. So there's a lot of talk on tariffs right now. I am all for cutting my income tax down, and let's pay for it through tariffs. And that's really how we did it when our country was starting up.
Yeah, I think all the way until, the 1880s or 90s,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah, so it's not a new idea. It's been tried. It can work, but it can't just be this black hole where we turn on the tariffs and don't do anything about it. Yay, we're getting more income. When we start raising tariffs, that's coming to my and your bottom line. If I was buying a Sony TV for $1,000, Trump slaps a 50% tariff on that, that TV is now going to cost me $1,500. And that's coming out of my pocket. Now, am I going to pay that? I don't know. I may look at my other U.S.-built TV that only cost me $1,200. So we will have some substitution, but the thing is, we need that substitution. It has to be built right here in the U.S. We need to really focus on our manufacturing. How do we bring stuff back in and start building stuff here? And that's the whole goal. Can we build it cheaper? Can we have the viewpoint that it's cheaper here in the U.S. than what our after-tariff incoming products are? And if we can do that, just think about that rock rolling downhill. We have things getting produced here in the U.S. We have more U.S. workers making a better wage. Those workers are spending their higher wages. Someone is getting that spending, and they're spending it, and it grows and it grows and it grows. But we cannot miss a step on this. You look at what Taiwan Semiconductor is doing right now, and I know they came over here for different reasons, but everything that's built in those plants, that's here in the U.S. It's in U.S. soil. It's U.S. workers. It's being spent here in the U.S. So it is so beneficial. And yes, there's going to be upfront cost. Yes, we're going to see prices go up, but maybe not long term. And it's going to make our country a lot safer and a lot more productive along the way.
Yeah,
So,
and geopolitically, Taiwan Semiconductor already admitted that their margins are going to be 2 to 3% lower on their U.S.-based plant, but for the sake of diversification away from the authoritarian governments overseas, they're building, I think, 2 plants in the U.S. and another one in Europe,
Yes.
and they're really trying to make sure that they have their bases covered in the event that China does invade or something along those lines.
right, 2 to 3% isn't that bad considering
Yeah.
they could lose everything if China would invade. So yeah, it's a perfect example. There's going to be push and pull, pros and cons on everything. But the biggest thing is growth. How do we grow? And if we think about growing, don't necessarily think I'm going to sell 2 widgets instead of 1. Yes, that's the outcome we want eventually, but what we're looking for now is I'm going to build 1 widget at half the cost. Now, my profits still doubled, but it's going to take a little while before actual output catches up. We hear all this talk about only a few are getting wealthy. Well, this is the way to bring us all up. We need higher, not minimum wage laws, but we need a higher wage for productive people in our country that are going to work long-term in full-time jobs.
And that's dictated by the market because the market
Dictated
demands
by
it.
the market,
Yeah.
yes, not by government. That doesn't work. All that does is increase prices and pushes for more technological changes.
Yeah, increases unemployment.
Yes, absolutely. So this, we want more things driven by the market. And if it's driven by the market, and who's in control of that? It's me and you. It's the people are in control. You know, don't think about the market being the stock market. Think about going to a farmer's market. You know, if you don't like avocados, you're not going to eat them.
Yeah.
If the watermelon's rotten, you're not going to eat it. You know, you're going to buy the things that you like. You're going to buy the things that you think are a good value, and that's just the way it works.
Yeah,
So,
you vote with what you want more every time you spend $1.
yes, and it is the cleanest system out there, and it's the one that's been proven to work, and has the longest track record of success.
So whenever something else, and I may be jumping ahead, but the tax cuts are projected to remain in effect. Is that correct?
Yes,
So is that going to help some of that growth?
absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, just really big picture. If the government gets $1 trillion, they spend all that, they're going to get $900 billion back. You know, if I get to keep that, I don't have to pay that tax. Well, what happened to that money? I grew it. So not 900 billion. Maybe it turns into 1.2 trillion or 1.5. You know, it grows instead of disappears. So keep the taxes as low as possible. And we've always seen this. We lower taxes, growth goes up. You know, we lower taxes, federal tax income actually increases because of that growth. So the big fear of, hey, if we're not taxing you enough, the federal government's not going to get their money, it's just not true. It's just not going to be wasted as much. And we'd rather grow $1 to $2 instead of $1 to 50 cents. So good question. What are some of the other things? We were looking at regulation. We were laughing about this earlier. You know, one of the big ways to help companies be more profitable is cut regulations. And I'm not talking about regulations that keep people safe or follow the law. This is just regulations for regulations. Oh, I want you to tell the butter story. This just cracks me up.
So there was a big recall lately, and Costco had to recall 80,000 pounds of butter because there was not milk listed on the label being in the butter. There was cream listed, but they didn't list milk as being an ingredient in the butter. So they're forcing Costco to recall 80,000 pounds of butter. So that may have an effect on a little bit of inflation. You know, the ripples of that are going to go through. But
I mean, there's a beautiful example of government regulation. I didn't put on there that milk was in the butter. I only put cream.
Yeah.
Why didn't I put cow? You know, someone's going to get upset that we didn't say cow. You know, but I mean, a lot of this stuff is so ridiculous. All it's doing is holding us back, costing us to spend more money. There's no change in the outcome whatsoever of what's happening. You're just not being held accountable for people's ignorance, maybe, or I don't even know how to explain it. You know, it's almost going back to the McDonald's coffee spill.
yeah.
You know, it made it into U.S. history. It is an incredible case, but come on, some of this is just silly.
Yeah, don't pour boiling water on yourself.
Yeah, I could tell you right off the top of my head that would hurt.
Yeah.
But regulations are huge. What is the number? I think almost immediately, as soon as the last president got in office, they increased the regulations by something around 86,000 regulations. That's 86,000 more rules. That's 86,000 more pieces of paper to fill out. I don't know how many extra attorneys that is, but it's too many.
Yeah.
You know, sorry, all my attorney friends, but the government should not have the job of employing attorneys, you know, to write more rules.
Well, and it goes back to you vote with where you spend your dollars. And if the government's coming in and stepping in and saying, you know, we need to recall 80,000 pounds of butter so that you don't get your vote, to tell Costco I'm going to spend my money somewhere else because you didn't tell me there was butter in it. No, the government's going to step in and make that decision for you.
Yes, yeah, it's crazy. I'll give another example. Got to meet with a friend last night. He is in the oil and gas business. This is a regulation that I probably should like, but it still doesn't make any sense to me. He was talking about gas. We were talking about natural gas. And he was saying right now in the area that he's in, natural gas is negatively priced. So in order to move it down the pipeline, he didn't get a check at the end. When they got all of his gas, he got a bill for about $40,000. Boy, that's hard to stomach. That's a lot of money he's being forced to pay. I asked him, well, could you flare it? And he's like, I don't know. No, we got rules and regulations on flaring. I was like, well, can you sell it to a direct source that they can use it electricity? He says, well, there's a lot of regulations there as well. I can sell it to a crypto mining facility as long as it was on our land at the point of where our gas was. I can do it for the same type of company, but if they're doing AI services, I can sell my electricity directly to them, but that's it. Cool. Everybody knows I like Bitcoin, so that should be a really cool rule. But why is there a rule at all?
Yeah.
Why can't he flare it? Why can't he burn it off? Why in the world are we not even using it? It's one of the cheapest, cleanest fuels on the planet, and we're not using it. So people are having to pay to get it out of the ground. So don't get me wrong. There's plenty of regulations out there that are very good and needed. But there is so much other stuff that is just pure nonsense. And a lot of it is, hey, you're struggling with that competitor. I got a senator buddy that can help that. He'll go write a rule and he'll be gone.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, that's what the majority of this is. It's setting somebody at a disadvantage so somebody else can have an advantage. And that's not where we want our government to be. What do we need from our government? I want my government to keep me safe. I don't want to be invaded by China or anybody else. I want a good military.
I want my kids to be able to swim in the local stream without swimming in chemicals.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's keep us safe. I want a good roadway. I want to be able to travel from one area to the other and not have to worry about hitting a pothole or the road falling apart. I would like it if our government could help the needy. And that's a tough one too, because a lot of the times we want our churches to do that. Me and you, we should be taking care of the needy, but it doesn't work out that way. So, yeah, let's get some help for them there. But what else? What else do we need them from? Is it really, hey, you didn't list milk as the ingredient on butter? There are some people that don't know cream comes from milk, so...
Well, and I think that one of the things, Trump seems to be bringing in a bunch of quote-unquote outsiders into the administration to kind of get a civilian viewpoint. And I think that, to a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and to an attorney, everything looks like it could be written a law on. And
yes.
So it'll be good to have a fresh viewpoint.
Absolutely. So these are just little things that we're going to see coming through. And, every dollar that's not being spent for government regulation, for government taxes, it will be productive. And if we can get those down, we should see a nice little growth in our economy. And if it's anything like it was his first administration, everybody should be happy. Everybody should be really happy. And I'm not talking just from the standpoint of looking at your 401k statement. I'm talking about going to the grocery store. Being able to go to more vacations, seeing your family, having true personal growth, making life easy for all of us. So that part is exciting, and we are setting up to invest that way as well. We think good things are coming, and we're going to need to take advantage of it.
So we've talked a little bit about spending. We're going to cut government spending, and we're going to cut costs. I say we. The government's going to hopefully cut spending. They're going to cut some costs. We're going to see a deregulation. We are talking about maybe growing quite a bit. So that means that where do we need to be investing? And not only that, what demands where we should put our dollars. So I know that right now the Fed is cutting interest rates, but if you look at the long-term interest rates, those are rising. And so should we be reaching out in those higher coupon interest rates, or should we be putting it in equities? What does that look like?
Right. This is where I really struggle the most, is in interest rates. Because it's a lot harder when we're looking at long-term interest rates. We're looking 20 to 30 years out in the future. That's hard to envision because I'm still anchored right here, right now, what's going on. So I really struggle there. But looking out at interest rates, looking long-term. Now, we've talked so much about Powell increasing or lowering interest rates. He only gets to control the overnight bank lending. So only the very, very short end of the curve is controlled by the Fed. The longer stuff is controlled by the market. And we're seeing that increase. And this is where I'm leaning. Back in 2020, our interest rate cost was $360 billion. Today, it's $993 billion. That is on a federal budget or federal spending of $7 trillion, and this is increasing at an astronomical rate. If we keep having these $2 trillion deficits and the federal government keeps spending all this money, that debt is going to grow and grow and grow, and eventually nobody's going to want it. And if you think, hey, what are the odds that the U.S. government's going to pay back my 30-year treasury 30 years from now if they are increasing their debt by a third every 5 years? How are we? Eventually, they're going to go bankrupt. They're going to be Greece. So what would I have to be paid to do that? Is it 4%? Would I get paid if I did 4% for 30 years?
Especially
and then I don't get my money back?
Yeah, and they're spending more and more and more and more,
yeah,
driving inflation.
So on the long end, you have to really think about these risks. And the market is saying, I don't like this. So the market, interest rates are going up long end because the market's demanding it. The market is saying, I will not take that low of a payment to take that risk for the next 30 years. And that's going to increase. That's going to continue to increase. We're going to get more and more, not so much fragile, but we're going to start losing faith. And once that happens, we're going to see long-term interest rates not just trickle up, but jump up big. And that's not where you want to be. So just basic, easy math. If I have a 30-year treasury and it's paying me 5% a year, and all of a sudden interest rates jump up to 10, this is just back of the napkin stuff. So if my interest rates go from 5 to 10, and I've got to take that difference for 30 years, how much of a difference is that? How much should my bond drop?
Yeah.
It's good. My bond's going to get cut in half. So who's going to want to invest that knowing that their principal is going to go down and there's a good chance of not making their money back and the interest that you're receiving is way below market?
And it sounds like, the path that led us to this point may be kind of why we're seeing a change in what government policy might be going forward.
Yes. So, once this starts to happen, we're going to see the government, they're going to be buying back their own long-term debt and then turning around and reinvesting it at whatever Powell has set that interest rates to. So, it's a fantastic trade. The U.S. government buys back their own loan with their own money and goes from a 10% interest rate down to a 0% interest rate. That's what's going to happen.
Well, and they're going to start turning those loans over a lot faster, making the duration shorter.
Yes.
So people get their money faster.
But what kind of market is it going to be if the only people buying federal securities is the federal government? I don't think we will be doing it at that time. So there's not going to be a lot of players in the game, and that's where the fear of the dollar dropping in value and all of that. So it's a fun thing to think about. It's not into world times or anything like that. So if the good old USA is doing that, you can bet your bottom dollar that Europe's doing it, Japan, China, everybody in the world's going to be doing it. So it's not like the US dollar goes away and the euro takes over. No, we're all doing it. So how does it trickle down to everyday person's wallet? Prices go up. Inflation goes through the roof, and we will pay for it. But it's a fun little thing to think about.
Yeah, just wait for that shoe to drop. So I know that we're going to get a lot of flack if I don't bring up, Bitcoin and what it's done since the election. And I know that Trump is a big pro-Bitcoin guy. So
Yes.
it was, 74 just before the election, and I think it's pushing in the 90s.
It's sitting at 90 right now. He has talked a big game about crypto, that he likes it and wants to put it on our balance sheet. I think the last I read, he wants to put 1 million Bitcoins, not $1 million worth, 1 million Bitcoins on the balance sheet. I think that's a great idea. If you have an asset that's going to be doing the opposite, it'll increase in value as the U.S. government prints money. That's a pretty dang good thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fear out there in the world. And we may have touched on this last time. Why have we been seeing this huge run in gold? Well, countries are buying it and putting it on their balance sheet. They're getting their currency backed by gold. They want a hard asset instead of some funny money that they can print out on a whim. So big central banks are buying a lot of gold. Big central banks should be buying Bitcoin. And we've seen it in the past. There's several countries out there. We've seen some do it. I think it was Germany. Didn't they buy it and then they got scared immediately and then pulled it right back out? We can't have any of that. We need people to understand how it works to be making those decisions. But either one of those assets backing a currency is stronger than air. Because if nothing's backing your currency other than your GDP, that's all you got. Yeah. There's nothing. I know people say that Bitcoin's funny money, but what is the U.S. dollar?
Yeah, funny money.
Come on, if you can go out and print 3 trillion of them in a year, if that was real money, Hewlett Packard would be the largest company in the world right now. and this is Hewlett Packard back. I don't even know why I said that. Hewlett Packard back when I was in college days, when they were big printers. Not today. They're a much different company, but. Hope you get my point.
Yep.
He's big into that, and we've seen Elon Musk the same way. He was a big pusher of Dogecoin, and there's a lot of benefits to having a currency that is not politically driven or can be taxed away or inflated away. So there's a huge need, and if we can get governments and central banks to acknowledge this, it's going to be absolutely huge for the industry.
And I'm going to go back one more time and just reiterate, where you place your dollars is kind of what you're voting to see more of in the world. And so if you want to, this is, by no means saying that you should go out and buy Bitcoin or gold or treasury bills, but whenever you're out shopping in that farmer's market, be aware of where you're spending your money.
Yeah, exactly. We are not saying go buy any of this stuff. We're having a polite conversation. A nice gentleman conversation. So, really, crypto is going to be a good place that should benefit from use in this current administration. If we bring back in manufacturing to our country, whether that is semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, building cars and tractors, doesn't matter. That's going to be a big boom for our economy. And it's not going to be just John Deere or Taiwan Semiconductor. We have to have roads that go in there, electricity to go in there. There is so much spending to bring all that back. So a lot of the old economy companies should be stronger through this. I like to think of it as the companies that have been left behind. It's truly the tortoise and the hare syndrome. The AI stuff just started screaming 2023, and everything else was pretty much left behind. Well, it's time for those companies to start catching up, and this is the time to do it. So big time on the manufacturing, and some of these are going to overlap. Military spending should increase, and I got to talk to my son this morning. We were talking about the military, and that's one of my regrets, that I did not go into the military. And it seems right now they're talking as if we're going to make changes there. You know, the old generals and the old admirals that were really pushing for this DEI stuff, they should be gone. And then we're going to get back to our military being in an area of strength, and we should be pushing for people to be proud to serve in our country, to protect all the citizens. And if we do that, it's going to be awesome for our country.
A good refocusing on the objective of what the military is for.
Yeah. What would happen if all of a sudden we were proud to be Americans again? I mean, wouldn't that be an awesome feeling? You know, instead of, I want to hang this American flag in my yard, but I don't want somebody to come destroy my property or steal it just to prove a point. No, it'd be fantastic to bring that back. You know, oil and gas, that's going to be another big one. And cutting regulations is going to be huge there. The amount of just the banking to access of funds. Oil and gas industry works a little bit different than a lot of industries out there. It's big spending up front and then big revenues that starts trickling down. So these big projects need big funding up front, and they need it very fast, and they need to be able to move forward, and that's going to help a lot. And you know, I've talked to people, and there is a fear out there that we're going to be pumping so much that the price of oil and gas goes down to nothing. And you know, I can see that thought, but it doesn't matter how much we pump. We've depleted our oil reserves. We've depleted our gasoline reserves. So even if we get back to the point that we're healthy again and it's not a big risk, not a big country risk, we've got to buy a lot of oil that should push up the price astronomically. So if we're pumping enough that we can refill all those reserves and it doesn't hurt us,
and
home run.
And for those people who are concerned about the price of oil, there's a good stability added.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really don't see it dropping down to something that's painful. You know, at the end of the day, I think we'd all welcome $50 oil, but I don't think that's where it stays long term. It's going to be higher. It's going to be somewhere around where we're at right now, and we can use every bit of it. The world economy is driven by our energy sources. So if we want to slow down growth across the world, if we want to increase poverty, then the way to do that is restrict our oil and gas.
Yeah.
The more energy we can put out there, the more electricity, the faster we grow, the faster that we bring people up to a normal level of living. So not a big fear from me that we're going to pump until it goes to zero. I think it goes the other way. It's going to be huge industry for us. Maybe prices come down, but just think about all the people that have been employed, how cheap we can run our heaters in the wintertime. You know, it's going to be a net positive. Really think that's good. Another one is trucking. You know, that's one of our companies. We have a couple of companies. We own the trucks and we own the trailers. And, you know, anytime the economy is growing, we have to move product around the country. So any kind of transportation, I think, is going to be really strong. So you think about all the things that we were just talking about, other than crypto, it's all old economy stuff. It's the boring, you know, Rockefeller. It's, it's not exciting. But this is the areas of the market that are a little bit cheaper, you know, a little bit easier to stomach paying these prices for. And these are typically industries that are a lot more cyclical in nature, that have huge growths in their stock price when the economy's good. That's kind of where we're headed. You know, we're here to talk, thinking of ideas, we're brainstorming. I bet we interrupt each other 10, 15 times a day of, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So, you know, if anybody does have questions, I'd love to hear from you. And I know Sam would as well. We try to pick people's brain because we sure can't think of everything, and we're not even close.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how often I try to prove Aaron wrong. So I'm just looking forward to it when I get it done someday.
Yeah, well, the only reason he doesn't do that is because I leave the room before he has time to figure it out.
Well, does that get us pretty much covered up today?
Yeah,
Aaron?
I think so. We could probably talk for days,
Yeah.
but
Chris would hate us.
yes, that puts a lot of work on Chris.
All right. Well, that's another episode of Black and White Market Minute with Life Planning 101.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.